All right. Thank you. Awesome. And thank you, Craig and Rebecca, for joining us on the Manager Challenge Retro. We held a session this morning as well, and got some really great feedback. So just scheduled this time for us to come together synchronously to discuss any feedback we have on the Manager Challenge. Feel free to be really candid with us. It's kind of the first time we've done anything like this at GitLab, and I know we've got a lot of really great feedback already, kind of as we iterate and roll this out organization-wide the next couple of months. So if you have any questions, feedback, you want to throw in the doc and verbalize it, we can talk through it. That would be awesome. And feel free to be as candid and as open as you'd like.
I do have a question about rolling out. What does that mean exactly? Is it going to be like the DIB training where kind of everyone was required to do it, or is it going to be just for new hires or people when they get promoted into manager position? What's your thinking around that right now?
Yeah, so I mean, the goal right now would be for anybody who's promoted into a manager to take the training, but also there's been a couple of audiences specifically that have requested us to roll this program out to them individually, like a number of sales managers, want to take the course, and product managers. I don't know if we want to make it mandatory, for managers to take, if it's something they're interested in doing. I think always keeping that as an option. Maybe every year we do it a couple times each year, 3 or 4 times. So good question.
So I can vocalize the 2 items that I just put in here. So one of them was, maybe I missed it, but it would be really nice to know at the beginning of the sessions, which ones might involve my team, or what I can involve my team in, because I assume they were all individual challenges. And then there were a couple that were like, hey, you can use this for your team, which I'll probably go back and do. But potentially at the beginning, when we're talking about the program, say, hey, on day 5 and day 7, here's an exercise, here's a preview of what it is, reserve 30 minutes for your team to do it in real time, or reserve a week so that you can send it out, and so that we can involve them throughout the process. I certainly was sharing some of the information with my team as I was going through, and there's a lot of interest from my team as to what we were doing. But it would be nice to know upfront so I can plan for that and set their expectations.
Oh, that's great. That's great feedback. Yeah, I think, and there was a good amount of activities that said, hey, share this with your team, hold the team meeting at a later date, do this. But yeah, I think calling that out in the future, great suggestion.
And then the other one is, so I get behind just for personal reasons and all that. So I got behind a little bit on some of the days and then ended up catching up towards the end. And so one of the ideas is, since we have meetingless Fridays, and I don't know if L&D's talked about this, that may be an opportunity where we could do larger training sessions, because if you set up training on a Friday, I don't have to cancel all my meetings, move all my other stuff. So one of the ideas is potentially to, instead of having the several weeks, have a 3-hour block on a Friday, something like that, which we know by definition should be clear. So that might be an opportunity for not just this program, but for other programs as well.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, I know one initiative we really want to focus on is kind of using Fridays to learn, as well. It's since you hopefully don't have any meetings that day, you can maybe focus a couple hours on professional development, growing your skills. Yeah, I mean, if that day is already open, it could be a really great, forum to bring people together, maybe more participation in general. Yeah, thanks, Seth.
Looks like I'm up next. So as I went through the training materials, I thought of other related materials that I may have read, watched, consumed in some way, shape, or form in the past that might be related. Is there somewhere, I didn't see it while I was going through it, other than the individual issues, but is there somewhere to add suggested materials or related materials, the social styles? There's a ton of different materials out there that could be studied or compared, right? Because sometimes the one tool that you have may not really work for the manager that you're working with, and having a set of tools available to review, I think, is helpful.
Yeah, no, that's that's great. I would say, I think for now, put it in, maybe we can formalize this, but put it in the manager challenge retro issue. I can put a link here to it. But yeah, I agree. I mean, there's, for example, like the behavioral assessments, which, you know, I know I got some really good feedback on that. Just not, we don't want to typecast team members into boxes, but there's a ton of different ones out there, and social styles is just one of many, as well as like, you know, Rebecca, you brought up a good point of the Tuckman model versus the Drexler Civet team performance model. I mean, this whole space within leadership and management development, there's a lot of resources out there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, what would you suggest a different process for capturing that information?
Maybe eventually in the handbook, right? Because we have the manager challenge section in the handbook, and I linked to that on my LinkedIn page so that other people outside the company can learn from it as well. So yeah, maybe just if this resonated with you, check out these materials and maybe have them linked to the themes of the different weeks that we had of the manager training, or maybe you all know the material better and the long-term goals, so you probably have some themes and folks can just add handbook entries as they come up. I know we have like a books and other materials section in the handbook, so it might be duplicate, or maybe we just link across to that. I'm not sure.
No, that's a great suggestion. Like, we'll definitely carve that out. Maybe the manager retro deserves its own handbook page. Awesome. Thanks, Fran.
To add to what Craig was saying, I was noticing that at least in the Slack channel, there was a lot of people that were following up in the synchronous discussions with, hey, here's a link that I found or a document that I found. So I think that by doing what Craig is describing, you could foster some of this continued knowledge sharing and collaboration. I mean, I felt like I got to know some of the other managers that were at least in the session, the synchronous session that I would attend, much better. And like, I'm more open to reaching out for questions and sharing.
Very cool.
Which is kind of a segue into my next observation, is I felt like I was missing out on sort of the larger group, because I think more people were attending the earlier in the day synchronous session. And because, like I said, I think one of the best benefits that I appreciated from this was for lack of a better word, networking, or getting to learn from other peer managers. It would have been great to be able to either wake up super early to attend that session, or find ways to asynchronously collaborate with those individuals.
Yeah, no, that's a great suggestion, and I think that's a big focus for us in the future, just because, you know, JC and I, we're both in the US. Like, how can we make this content consumable for APAC and EMEA just a little bit more, and give them, you know, those networking and, you know, live learning opportunities. So we've got to try to solve that for them as well. You know, I'm curious too, like, did you, since kind of at GitLab, you know, we don't have meetings where we present slides, you know, team members use the prep work to review slides, and then they come to the meeting and ask questions. In like live learning events during the challenge, did you find that it was beneficial to review the content in those meetings, or would you rather use that time for like networking, kind of learning from others, you know, role playing scenarios, versus spending the first 20-30 minutes talking about content?
For me, it was beneficial because admittedly, I didn't review the content in advance.
Awesome.
There's that, and I think it's also beneficial to make sure everybody's on the same page, to level set kind of expectations and understanding of you know, what the breakout sessions are, what the goals of the synchronous sessions are. So yep, I think it's helpful.
Okay.
And I think you all did a really good job of kind of adjusting to the audience, as I saw us going through the first weeks. Like second week, you made some pretty dramatic changes, right? You dropped the role playing piece. I assume that was based on some feedback, and you changed to the audience. So I thought you guys did a fantastic job, and that was my comment in number 6. think overall the training was great, and I think it was effective for both new and seasoned graybeard managers like me.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig. Really appreciate that.
Yep.
Last question for you all. Did you feel like it was too long, like 4 weeks? I mean, it's a big time commitment, 20 minutes a day, sometimes more, sometimes less. No. Okay.
No, I thought it was a really good amount of time. One weakness in other programs that I've been in is that they're awfully short, where you don't have to do much in them. One that I went to, I used to work for Oracle, and they have a required, if anybody gets promoted or hired into a manager position, you have to go, and it's an offsite, it's a week. I don't know what they're doing during COVID, but it's very immersive and intense. You know, I brought my family up to, stay with me for the week and everything. That would be too much, right? I think that's too much. But something that you can really easily dip in and out of would be too easy, right? That would not give you any particularly useful stuff to work with. So I thought it was a good sweet spot. And it's not like a semester long, that would be a different program, right? That would be something else, which would be interesting, but not what you're trying to achieve here.
Yeah, I agree with Rebecca. I've been in those week-long immersive trainings where that's all you do for the week or several days, and it's quite draining, and it's a bit too much, and you lose some of the topics as well, right? You have to go back and review it. So no, I think this is very well balanced. I appreciated the way you set up the structure. Worked well for me.
Cool. No, that's really good feedback. I think one big area for us too is just figuring out how do we summarize all of the comments and the issues for the challenges, because dedicating time to review that and read is really, it can be tough. So that's a interesting solve for us moving forward. How do we summarize this?
Yeah, being behind, actually one of the benefits was I was able to go and see and read everyone's comments ahead of mine. And so I think people that may have done the things first lost out if they didn't go back and look at all the comments that were showing up, because I think there's a huge amount of value, almost more value, frankly, in the comments than just the descriptions.
Definitely. Yeah. I learned a ton from reading everybody's
I have
feedback.
a question about that. Do you think, I don't want this to seem like college and just having to comment on other people's responses, but do you think it would be helpful to have that be part of the assignment? Like, you have to respond to this, you also have to respond to at least one other person's what they wrote?
I would say for me, no. I mean, at some point you have to trust people to step through the material and the intention of the course in their own way. I think, as you point out, Seth, somebody who's really motivated or behind can easily enhance their experience by going back and reading. But to make that required, you're going to get into a race condition where people are kind of waiting on each other and stuff. And I don't know, that doesn't sound like any more helpful to me.
Yeah, I don't think that would be necessary. I don't know if people that filled it out early remember to go back and look at it. I mean, personally, my workflow is if someone mentions me an issue, I go look at it, but otherwise I don't. So if I were first, I probably would have missed the other comments. One way to address that might be just some highlights in our synchronous session of being like, hey, Craig said this. Craig, you want to talk about that? Or here's a pull quote from Craig, or here's a pull quote from Lindsay, or something to that effect.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree with Rebecca about not making it required. There were people that gave good feedback, like, hey, Seth said a great thing, or Rebecca, that was a great suggestion, I'm gonna go read that book. So it comes across as probably a little more genuine if it's organic like that than being forced. So
Awesome. No, it's really good feedback. I think if you have more feedback, and you just drop us a line in the manager challenge pilot channel, and I think we'll definitely a lot of iteration on this. I'm actually meeting with Sid on Tuesday just to review the program with him, because he's super passionate about manager enablement and leadership training. So he's got a firm. If you want to see the deck that I'm going to present to him, I linked it up at the top there. So
awesome. Yeah, that's great that there is this much investment in training managers, because a lot of times it's just like, okay, you're a manager now, go, and you don't get this type of training. Some of us have been fortunate enough, sounds like Rebecca got it, and I think some other folks on this call, but I've seen other people like, you're a manager now, and they're just kind of lost. Like, oh crap, what do I do now? I knew my old job, and now I have a different set of responsibilities. So again, thank you to you all for doing this, and thanks to Sid for making sure that this is happening for managers, and it's going to become part of our DNA. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. That'd be
I
really
can honestly
cool.
say this was the first formal manager training I've had in the 10 years that I've been an engineering manager, and I appreciate it. Learning by doing can take you only so far.
Yep. Especially if you had bad managers in the past and you learn from their habits.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. The technical skills will definitely take you really far, but or the engineering, but if you don't have like the take a step back and like management and leadership practices, like it can be
Well,
tough.
and for me, I was promoted internally from being a developer to a manager. So I came with a lot of domain experience, and I stayed in that role for a very long time. So I felt very equipped to be a manager at the time. It wasn't until I moved to GitLab until I understood how important it was to actually, I don't know, learn more about management approaches and some of the social styles and high performing team things that we learned in this training.
Yeah, I feel like being remote too, it's like you only have so much time with your team, like you need to make it as effective as possible. So cool. Well, if you ever want to jump on a call one-on-one with JC and I, talk about anything, any ideas, or you want drop us a line. Seriously, we're an open book. If you want to participate in the next challenge that we roll out, you can do that as well. I don't know how different the content will be, but it should be pretty different actually.
Yeah, and then just I thought like if there's in the future the potential for a round 2 or a second tier or continued, you've already done the manager challenge, but maybe let's build on these ideas that you learned. I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, totally. I feel like too the content from week 4, that the building high performing, you could build a whole curriculum around that. So JC and I need to like hire a few more people to help us build this content. So
Are there any plans to offer this to ICs who may be interested in management track? Awesome.
Yeah.
Because I think I've managed managers before, and a lot of them were the internal transfers from being an IC to being a manager. And I think a couple of them, had they seen these slides up front, would have said, nope, I'm out. I don't want to do this. I don't want to get that involved at a personal level with my team. I didn't realize that was that important. I thought it was just, I will be an IC and I tell everyone what to do. So I think this could certainly help either accelerate or decelerate people's management aspirations.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. There's a lot that if you don't know, you don't know until you're in the role.
I second that, and for a different reason. So this was like the first question that I got in my peer managers team and support. They asked me to speak about this program this week since it just finished. And that was the first question was, I've got people who are interested in potentially being managers. Would this be a good thing for them to do? And I was like, definitely. It was like not even a question in my mind. And I love what you're saying about kind of weeding out or making it more real. But it's also stuff that, for example, in our definition of senior support engineers, we look for some of these skills to be happening already, right? So if we're looking for that to be happening, let's show them how, right? And not just wait for people to magically or intuitively know how to do these things. Let's give them some tools. So I think you said something more towards the beginning, Josh, that there might be kind of an opt-in way of doing it. If it's run a couple times a year, then people could opt in. I also like that it's measurable, right? It's a thing that can go into someone's maybe promotion document or something. I have this aspiration towards that goal. I'm going to do this program and see, evaluate the results. It's concrete. It's something good that way.
Oh, that's a great suggestion. Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, well, this is exciting. If there's other topics too that you think would really like hit home like GitLab specific. I know coaching and trust and high performing teams and inclusiveness too. Like that's another thing, like we're constantly trying to reevaluate, just making sure the topics align with our values. So if you feel like there's things that should be included or not excluded, like definitely let us know.
Some of this is already in the handbook, but maybe some task specific things, running effective one-on-ones, running effective team meetings, running effective brainstorming, a lot of the things that are very specific to what we're doing in a remote company, even just a workshop, a 2-hour session of like, hey, here's one-on-ones, here's how to structure them, here's things to do, not do. Same thing for team meetings and so on and so forth. It's all written in the handbook in some form or another. But a lot of that gets really dense, and perhaps a workshop on how to put all that into practice would be useful.
Yeah.
I could see that being like an ongoing series of seminars offered, right? Like once a quarter, you give a thing about one-on-ones or whatever. Yeah, I like that. I'm working with one of my colleagues slowly on an issue about running inclusive meetings in particular, because it's very different than how many GitLab meetings are run. So we're going to be doing some experiments probably in Q4, and I'll touch back with you, JC and Josh, and see if that ends up being something that could be helpful to workshop with other people who run meetings.
Yeah, I'd love to learn more about that. What's going into that? So keep us in the loop.
Well, the nice part is a lot of people have done a lot of work in that area, so we don't have to invent things. We can choose a boring solution, but it does take some experimentation followed by iteration, I think, to see what might actually work in our async environment. Another question, rolling this out more, is it assumed that other things will be prerequisites, for example, that you've already gone through the 101 and 201 of GitLab basics, that you've already done the remote work foundations thing? Is that all going to be prerequisite for this kind of course?
Yeah, ideally there would be a number of them. And, I think, I don't want to take too much more of our time, but we are getting a learning management system here at GitLab in the next couple of months. And that's really going to help us really, really scale learning and really make it like a lot more personalized. So I would envision you wouldn't be able to sign up for this course unless you completed those prerequisites. Right now we don't really have that capability. It's very manual. But yeah, that would be the vision. So we're investing in learning at GitLab. That's exciting. All right. Well, enjoy your afternoons and your friends and family day. Don't hopefully nobody works tomorrow, but it might be kind of quiet. I don't know.
Thank you, Josh and JC, very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Nice work.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Bye now.
Bye.